everyone, it's Marissa, and today is going to be a mental health update video, I guess. I kind of fell off the face of the earth a bit in 2025 for mental health reasons, and I'm gonna take some time today to discuss the impact of that and the impact it'll have on future books, on the YouTube channel, on channels, there's multiple channels, on blogs, on basically everything, because things have to change a little bit for reasons I hope you guys will understand, hopefully. I'm not going to go into the details of what happened that caused me to get these diagnoses. I'm not going to go into any of the trauma or hard stuff. For sure not today. Dear God, I can't do it. But I will share how I got diagnosed, what those diagnoses are, and why and how they're going to change how I do things from here on out. So, it started back in 2022 for the most part. 2022 opened my eyes to a lot of things. I started to experience life with a lot more clarity than I ever did before. I knew in 2022, I pretty much knew in 2022 what was wrong with me. Are you running on your treadmill? What was I saying? Oh yeah, in 2022, because of things I learned about myself and about what was going on, I pretty much knew what was wrong with me, to the point where I actually pretty much nailed the diagnosis I would later get. But yeah, so I've known in general what is wrong for several years, but I didn't get the official diagnosis until 2025. So there are some things that I know about things, and then there are some things that I just don't know, and I'm not supposed to know, and that's okay. But back when I first started seeing these things occur in my life, I was really, really curious and wanted to get to the bottom of it. And I'm very much an answer person. I like having answers because I feel like if I have an answer, I can figure out how to take the next step. If I know what the problem is, if the problem's identified, I feel like I can work to a solution. Whereas if I am lost and don't know what the problem is, it's harder for me to reach a solution. But therapy at that time for me, and all of my mental health treatment back in 2022, was less about answering questions and more of a crash course on how to survive. it was really just a crash course in how the F are you going to survive another couple days. that's what therapy was. It was let's make sure you survive through this, and that's what we focused on. I was in a very unsafe situation, and it wasn't possible for me to leave. at that point in time. So focus was on getting through instead of trying to pinpoint solutions to all of my problems, if that makes any sense. The biggest problem was getting somewhere safe at that point in time. So I didn't dig that much back then. It wasn't the priority. I knew back then, well, I was pretty sure I knew that I had a specific disorder, but it's one of those, it's like a pendulum swinging. I vacillate, it would be violently, I would say violently, between yes, I accept and I know this and I'm 110% sure that it is real, and then I swing from 100% sure to 0% sure. I think I'm crazy, I'm in denial, I reject everything that I see and pretend it isn't real, because that's what traumatized brains do. When you see a harsh truth, you swing back and forth between, yep, that's a fact, that's true, I accept it, and that's not true, that's impossible. Star Wars. There's your Star Wars for today, everyone. Even after being diagnosed, I still swing. Like, a group of people have looked at me and said, yes, this is what is wrong. And I still have days where I'm like, yep, 110% accept, and then 110% reject. It is very hard to believe and come to terms with. It's difficult, even with proof. But in 2024, late 2024, I did manage to leave the unsafe situation. And it was the first time I lived on my own where I was by myself and safe and secure, and I wasn't being watched or hurt 24/7. So all of the things I was denying and all of the signs I was pretending weren't there, I couldn't pretend weren't there anymore, because that was now the focus. I had safety, and now I was just piling on questions. You know, there were a lot of really confusing things that started happening once I lived on my own. I could talk about those in greater detail if anyone's curious, but you notice a lot more when you're the only one. When you're the only one in a house, you start noticing things. Let me just say that. I've always dissociated very heavily. If you've ever had dissociative amnesia, or if you've never had it, I should say, you don't realize that it's happened. That's kind of the point. You're not supposed to recognize that it's happened. You sort of zone out, and all of a sudden you're somewhere else, someone else, doing something you weren't doing what feels like the previous second. It's like teleporting. But your brain is really, really clever, and it just says, hey, like, it's totally fine. The fact that you went from here to here, it's totally fine, totally normal. You don't need to question it. So your brain protects itself from inquisitiveness in a way. When you have amnesia like that, your brain's like, it's fine. Don't ask questions. It's fine. You don't have to worry about this. And I only learned that I was having these episodes because of things I'd bring up in therapy. And my therapist pointed out, like, that's not normal. You're dissociating, you're losing a lot of time. And years ago, it had to be in the early 2020s. It's so weird that I can say that. Um, she had me focusing on when it happened, how it happened, basically asking me to keep track of things, keep track of where I was, what I was doing, what clothes I was wearing, how I got there, things like that. And I spent a lot of years doing that, learning to spot when time was missing from my life, even though my brain didn't want me to know that time was missing from my life. Um, so by 2025, I was pretty used to being able to point it out and find the blank spots when they happened. I still don't notice all of them. I will say that. I will say that very plainly. I don't notice all the time I lose. But I am much better at noticing and keeping track of small signs now that I used to just ignore. Um, which brings me to spring of 2025, and um, ironically, my gaming channel. I was streaming. What was it? It was Uncharted 2. Um, I can't remember where I was at in the game. I don't think I've recorded since then, but as of recording this video, I need to get done with that game. That was a fun game. But I remember very specifically finishing a live stream. I went to bed, I woke up, I went to work, and I came home and I went, man, Uncharted 2 is fun. I'm going to play that again. I'm going to stream it again today. And, just have fun, chill, and stream. And I logged onto Twitch, and it tells you when your last stream was and when you'd last logged in. And it said it had been 12 days. So, to my mind, with amnesia, no time had passed at all. It was the next day to me. But real life had shifted. It had been 12 days in reality, whereas I didn't notice anything had missed at all. I didn't stream that day, um, obviously, because I haven't finished that game, gosh darn it. Um, but instead, I did what I'd been learning to do in therapy. I took stock of what was going on in my life. I checked in my house. I saw that there were new groceries in. I saw that there was a mess that needed to be cleaned up in the kitchen. Back then, the arcs for Again needed to be sent out, and they were late, so I had to scramble around to do that. Like, I had stuff I needed to do, and there were things that weren't where I keep them, and everything was just a bit of a mess. But I was used to losing time, and I've lost time as short as minutes, and time lost longer than years before. So I'm used to having blank space in my memory. So I didn't panic when I lost those 12 days. I just went to problem solving and coping and figuring out what needed to be done, what hadn't been done that needed to get done. So I didn't freak out. I got all the chores done. I got, things put back where they were supposed to be. I got the ARC boxes sent out. And I would have never noticed any of this if it wasn't Twitch, all things Twitch, alerting me to what had happened. So yeah, again, this is normal life. And I've learned that when you freak out, when you dissociate, when you lose time, that stress and that panic tends to make you dissociate more. So over the years of me noticing this, I've been learning to cope better and not freak out when it happens and when I notice it, just because you kind of have to, otherwise it's just going to happen again and it's just going to be worse. So I treated everything like it was normal. I kept going on with my day, and then I did bring it up to my therapist at my next appointment, and I told her what I thought was going on with me, and she did not show any surprise when I told her what I thought was going on. But she is not an expert in dissociative disorders. They're not in her main wheelhouse. She's focuses more on trauma specifically rather than dissociative disorders. But I asked her if we could find an expert because now I was in a safe place. I could worry about finding answers instead of just trying to survive. So she was like, "Yeah, like let's find you let's find you someone." And she went and did a bunch of research because bless her. And she found several different experts in the field of dissociation near where I am. And I scheduled an appointment with one of them. And it was supposed to be a 45-minute consultation appointment. And I remember it was almost 2 hours long. It was supposed to be 45 minutes. And I ended up being in this appointment for 2 hours. And basically, I make jokes all the time to cope with things. So if you hear me laughing at dark stuff, by the way, it's just, that's why. She basically looked at me at the end of those 2 hours and said, "You need an adultier adult." She's like, I am not enough of an expert to deal with what you're dealing with. And I kind of just laughed because that's all I do. Like, when faced with tough stuff, it's easiest for me to laugh through it instead of crying. I know it's not the best coping mechanism, but there are worse coping mechanisms. So the lady I'd been referred to gave me more referrals to PHP and IOP programs. Those are partial hospitalization programs and intensive outpatient programs, which was big and scary to me. It was very scary to have those put in front of me. And it's just weird because for me, life is just this way. So it's my normal, so it's always a little weird when other people look at me and are like, "Holy shit, how do you even function?" And I'm like, "I have to. That's how I function. I have to. I don't have a choice." But I was really reluctant, but also still very, very curious. And I knew I needed the help and I knew I needed to figure out what was going on. So I picked one of the programs out of the suggestions, and Turns out intensive mental health care is like thousands of dollars a week. It's a lot. And I was like, I can't afford this, so let's just check and see if they take my insurance. I need to see if any of these places take my insurance. And I can't remember if it was a Friday or Saturday, but because I'm too lazy to check for receipts. I still have all of my emails, but I'm not looking into that. But I sent them an email if they would take my insurance. And first thing Monday morning, the first second they were open, I got a call. And I don't know if it was like the head administrator or it's my brain doesn't remember things. As you can probably tell, my brain doesn't remember things very well. Administrator or coordinator or caseworker, it was somebody. He got a hold of me and asked me what had happened, and I explained to him my history of losing time and the more recent episode where I noticed I'd lost 12 days. Only because of external stuff, but semantics. And he literally had me in the program the very next morning. There was no time for me to think about it. There was no time for me to consider it. I was just sort of shoved in. They were like, yeah, you need to be here. Get your butt in here. We have a whole couch for you. I wasn't really mentally prepared. I was very, very scared, but I did it. I spent 3 months in intensive outpatient care. It was anywhere from 15 to 20 hours a week. 3 months of intensive therapy care. It was like going to boot camp for trauma. It was a lot. They had me doing drug tests. I think I was tested every week. I had psychiatrists, therapists. I saw an expert in dissociation. I took so many assessments. Apparently more than I remembered, because one of my therapists was like, oh yeah, you took this one before. And I'm like, no, I didn't. So a lot of stuff I didn't even remember doing, which, duh. But it was a lot. They spent quite a bit of time ruling out diagnoses like psychosis and schizophrenia and mania, and I can't remember which BPD, because there's two BPDs. There's borderline and bipolar, right? I don't remember which one they were ruling out. It was one of them that they were ruling out. And it's funny because they were ruling out these things. I was like, oh, that was what I was doing a couple years ago when I was trying to figure out what the F was wrong with me. I was trying to rule things out and desperately hoping that the answer I came up with wasn't the truth, but it was, unfortunately. I I've been in therapy for 10 years ish, and I've known I have major depressive disorder. I know I have anxiety. I know I have CPTSD. And while I was in intensive outpatient care, I finally got the diagnosis that answered my real questions, I guess you could say. The real questions that plagued me. Yeah, I have something called OSDD, otherwise specified dissociative disorder. You listeners, you, that's who I refer to as you, obviously, duh. You have probably heard of multiple personality disorders or DID. Those are more, I guess, commonly heard of terms. My team, I don't know what else to call them. I was seeing so many people during that time. After all of their assessments, all of their time watching me and talking to me and testing and all the things. All the things. There was a lot of stuff going on those 3 months. They agreed that I had multiple personalities, or alters. I usually call them brainmates because that's what me and my regular therapist has always called them. I I did hit all of the criteria for DID throughout the assessments and through all the fun stuff. But as we talked um, with the collective team, as we'll call them, um, they noted my day-to-day amnesia is a little bit lighter than most DID systems experience. So they're like, yeah, you fit DID. We're gonna put you in the OSDD category because it just the amount of amnesia you deal with is a little less than what we typically see in DID systems. So, um, I was officially diagnosed with OSDD. I am a member of an OSDD system. There are multiple people living in this body. I deep down knew in 2022 that it was likely DID. Turns out I was pretty close to right. Um, Maybe I'll explain someday how I knew back in 2022 what was going on, because that is a whole nother mess. But this is how I ended up getting my diagnosis, all because of Twitch. We can blame Twitch for inspiring me to go to therapy boot camp for 3 months. Jeez, it was rough. Um, it was a relief in some ways that so many people, so many experts, everybody who worked on my case and worked with me, they they had an answer, they pointed at something, because it's I just thought I was crazy. Like, I thought I was fucking crazy. I thought I was losing my mind. There were things happening that were just unreal. It's so hard to explain. And it was reassuring to know that there was an answer, and there is a game plan. There are things that can help, and I have been getting help that has been making things easier. But it was good. It was scary, of course, because now I have this big thing that I have to deal with. I mean, I always had it. I try to look on the side of, it's always been there, so you've always been dealing with it, Marissa. You're fine. But it was both a relief and a weight at the same time. Um, but now I have an answer, and I have a means to work forward from there. So, hi. I'm Marissa, and I'm the host of our system and our sort of emotional protector, but that is a long story. Um, the long and short of what that means is I'm the person, the brainmate, the personality that is most often in control of our body. If you think of the body like a double-decker bus, the person driving the bus is in control of the body, and all the other personalities can be anywhere else on the bus. They can be close enough that I can hear them, or all the way up on the top deck where I can't hear them or really notice them. It just depends on where people are. My job is to get us through day-to-day life for the most part, and all the others have their jobs too. I won't speak on their behalves. Plural of behalf. I don't know. I won't speak on their behalf. If they want to talk about stuff, they can. I'm not going to force it. I don't feel like that is right because I know how hard unmasking is. This is not easy. So I'm not gonna force them to unmask or force them to speak if they are not comfortable with doing that. But some of you may already be somewhat familiar with my brainmates a little bit. I know for sure on gaming streams, some of my brainmates have taken over the metaphorical driver's seat mid-game. I actually recently found a really obvious switch in one of my games where so obvious. It was interesting for me to listen to. Scary, but interesting in my opinion, just to hear it happen and from like hear somebody else speak from my mouth, if that makes any sense. It was uncanny but interesting at the same time. Some of my blog posts have been written by other brainmates. Some of the videos on this channel have been recorded by other brainmates. I know that most, if not all, of my books have been co-written by me and one of my brainmates. She is really, she's really into writing. She likes writing too. And a lot of the proof that I have that somebody else lived in my head was from finding a bunch of writings that I never wrote. And, that's her. If you've read our book again, there's a plot twist in that book that I did not write. I came back to work on that book and there were 2.5 chapters written that I didn't read, that I didn't write, and I went back and I read through them and I was like, oh, this is brilliant. I'm gonna have to make this happen now. So it was brilliant. I rolled with it. I've had to learn to roll with a lot of things. But she and I share a love for writing, and you'll see for sure her work crop up, and for sure in different videos and things others have cropped up in the past. But I won't be forcing any of them to, call themselves out. If they call themselves Marissa, that's just gonna be how it is. It's fine. I'm not gonna make anyone say anything they don't want to or aren't comfortable with. So, why am I doing this? Why would I do this? I don't know. It's very stupid. Why would I tell anybody this? Um, for one, it's gonna put quite a bit of my work on hold, um, because of firstly healthcare costs. I wasn't able to work as much as I needed to throughout the IOP program, and on top of that, medical bills. So I fall behind a little bit. So it's gonna be a little bit before I can get back to publishing my works, because Lord knows I refuse to publish unedited works. I can't do it. um, and it's gonna change how things work in general and how I deal with my life in general, because I I push myself really hard, and I need to not do that. I need to stop doing that. And that affects you guys. That affects anybody who reads my books or likes my videos or likes my gaming channel or anything that I put my hands on, because I I need to not only take more time for myself to make sure I'm healthy, but my brain mates should have their own time as well and their own needs and projects met, because they deserve that. Um, and I know in the past they have done a lot of work to help me achieve my goals and help me get things done, but there's gotta be some sort of give. There's gotta be at least a little give. I want to make sure that they have time for their stuff too. Um, and I can't keep forcing such a breakneck pace on myself. Um, I am just trying to be kinder and more accepting of myself and my limitations, instead of pushing myself until I break constantly and hoping I'll be okay at the end of it. Just break myself over and over and hope it's okay. Like, that's not healthy. Um, I also wanted to talk about this because I believe very much in vulnerability and honesty. I'm I often feel shame about my diagnosis and what it means, but there is nothing shameful about what our brain did to protect us. What is shameful is what was done to make our brain have to do this. That's unacceptable. But what my brain did is not something I should be ashamed of. And I I value honesty and vulnerability. And I think if there would have been more people in my life who were honest and vulnerable about these more sensitive topics, then maybe we would have seen the signs. Maybe we would have gotten out sooner. Maybe we would have been safer sooner. Maybe some really horrible things wouldn't have happened. And I I'm not out here wanting to do a whole mental health YouTube. That's not what I want. I'm a writer. I'm going to do more about writing and reading and stuff. But my mental health, if any of you have read any of my books, is very prominent. I write about it all the time because I feel like that honesty needs to be out there. And no one's mental illness looks the same. No one has the key to what mental illness is supposed to look like or anything. It always looks different, but there are some similarities, and I wish I'd been able to see them. And I feel like if I shut my mouth, if I hide, if I continue to mask everything that's been going on with me the way I have masked for so long, I'm just part of that cycle. I'm somebody who is letting this happen again and again to more people. And maybe I can't help anyone. Maybe I can't change anything, but I can try. And it's scary. It's scary being honest and vulnerable because I know there are a lot of people who will judge me and who will think that I am crazy. Get in line, I was here first. Take a number, get behind me. But there is someone out there who's being hurt like we were. There are way too many people who are being hurt like we were. And if I can do the scary thing and I can reach even one person, which I've heard my books have already helped a couple people, I'm glad for that. But if I can be more mask off, more honest, then I'm going to do that. If I can help anybody find at least a little bit of peace, a little bit of comfort, just by being a little more honest and doing the scary, vulnerable thing, then I will. I want to be the person we desperately needed and didn't have. So that is why I am recording this. This is why I am being honest about this, because this is fucking scary. So scary. I am so stupid. Why would I do this? Negative self-talk. Negative self-talk. Stop it. Stop it. So, that's why I've been MIA recently. Life has been really difficult. I've been coming to terms with a lot of things. And pushing myself way too hard. My brain and body need some serious kindness and some TLC, and I don't know what else it needs, but it needs a lot. And I'm trying to do better about taking care of me and my system. That's one hell of an update. Jesus. One hell of an update. Yeah, that's where we're at. That's what I'm dealing with. That's what we're dealing with. I'm learning a new sense of balance. That's what I've been sort of doing in the past few months, is just trying to relearn just balancing general life things and being more kind and accepting of not just my brainmates, but of myself too. A lot of hard work going in on that. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. This is really effed up. I know it's effed up. Trust me, I'm living it, so I know it's crazy. Yeah, I guess if you've got any questions, for me, that's fine. Please be respectful. about them. And if I do know the answer, and it's safe for me to answer, there are some things that it's not safe for me to answer. Um, I'll answer them. Again, I won't ask or force any of my alters to do or say anything that they are not comfortable with. But I'm going to try to be a bit more mask off. I've already recorded a video recently where one of my brainmates talked to me and I talked back to them, and I didn't bother editing it out. I thought about it. I was like, nope, that's real. That is what it is. Just let it be. So I'm gonna try to be a bit more mask off. Not always gonna do it perfect, I don't think. But yeah, just trying to be more honest and vulnerable, and hope that it somehow helps someone else. I know that when I do find somebody who is authentic and honest, it does help me a lot. So I want to be one of those people that I needed to have. And I know other people out there need that too. It's scary to be this person. It's really scary. Anyway, there's nothing really more that I can say. I mean, there's a million things I could say. I've learned so much about myself the past few years, and about my brain. Um, but I think we're gonna leave that here for now. I'm gonna go rest for a little bit. Um, yeah, I'm gonna go get some rest. I hope you all have a good day, and hope people are kind to you, and hope you're kind to other people, because you never really know what somebody else is going through. Take care, everyone.